killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a
million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little sick.
What happens when Greg Gutfeld, the human espresso shot of sarcasm, joins forces with Megyn Kelly, the ice queen of savage comebacks? They don't just roast Jimmy Kimmel, they flambe him in prime time and played it with a smug little bless your heart. Kimmel tried to clap back, but it had all the impact of a damp paper towel in a hurricane. This isn't your average TV squabble, it's a 5-star, slow-roasted takedown. Grab your popcorn because the pettiness is about to reach Michelin star levels.
Case in point, last night, all the other late-night hosts threw a hissy fit. It's too bad Tim Waltz is still grieving, or he could send them all a sack of industrial-strength tampons.
You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it, because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee, and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
Once upon a time in the bizarre backlot of late-night TV, Jimmy Kimmel was just a harmless jester, cracking dad jokes about burritos and juggling celebrity. Fluff like a human TMZ piñata. But then, something shifted. The guy who once emceed Keg stands with bikini models suddenly looked in his Hollywood vanity mirror and proclaimed himself the nation's moral compass. That's right, America's favorite frat boy swapped his solo cup for a sermon. The transformation was so awkward it made Mike Pence doing stand-up look natural. And right on cue, in swaggered Greg Gutfeld, ready to pounce.
Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hard-working immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate.
Picture this. The king of cable snark riding the ratings like a mechanical bull, loaded with enough sarcasm to make a cactus question its toughness. Gutfeld didn't just clock Kimmel's transformation, he brought a megaphone, a whiteboard, and maybe even a glitter cannon to spotlight just how wildly Kimmel had veered off the comedy tracks.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the 4th time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a spook.
While Kimmel was busy turning his monologues into TED Talks for terminally online activists, Gutfeld was breaking records as the anti-late night host. No jazz band, no canned laughter, just punchlines so dry they came with a drought warning. Kimmel hid behind velvet ropes of virtue, while Gutfeld stormed through in clown shoes, flipping the bird with every Nielsen victory. And just like that, the roast was on.
One who voted against him, and guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song. But that's it. You big... Now...
First came the diagnosis. According to Gutfeld, Jimmy Kimmel was suffering from a chronic case of moral overcompensation syndrome, a condition commonly seen in ex-shock jocks who discover a conscience 3 Emmy nods. Too late. Symptoms? Preachy monologues wrapped around limp jokes, and dabbing tears on cue cards while pretending it's all just edgy satire. Then came the treatment: relentless mockery. Gutfeld tore into Kimmel's new persona with the grace of a jackhammer in a yoga studio. The guy who once staged fake twerk disasters for YouTube glory was now dishing out political advice like a Whole Foods cashier who just skimmed a viral thread. And if you're wondering whether Gutfeld came prepared, oh, he brought receipts. Entire filing cabinets worth. Ratings, sketches, and vintage clips from The Man Show that have aged like dairy in a desert. Gutfeld didn't just critique Kimmel's comedy, he performed a full-blown autopsy. A once funny guy now delivering punchlines that feel ghost-written by a policy think tank.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah.
And here's where things got truly poetic. While Gutfeld wielded sarcasm like a scalpel, Megyn Kelly stormed in with a flamethrower, cool, collected, and dressed like she was headed to a power lunch and a takedown session. Enter Megyn Kelly, the rhetorical assassin in a sheath dress, casually sipping her coffee while dismantling reputations like IKEA furniture. No instructions, no mercy. While Gutfeld went the chainsaw route, gleefully shredding what was left of Kimmel's dignity, Kelly opted for precision. She slipped on the surgical gloves, picked up that scalpel, and began dissecting Jimmy's carefully curated moral high. Ground cell by hypocritical cell. No yelling, no theatrics, just receipts, calmly filed under K for Kimmel and J for jokes that aged like milk. Let's rewind, shall we? Remember The Man Show, that testosterone-soaked spectacle of bikini, contests, beer funnels, and Jimmy Kimmel grunting his way through frat boy fantasyland alongside Adam Carolla? That wasn't just a phase, that was his brand. The highlight reel was boobs, beer, and bro humor in HD. It was like a frat party sponsored by Axe Body Spray and unfiltered male ego. And yet now, Jimmy's recast himself as America's moral compass, scolding the masses from atop his velvet soapbox of self-righteousness.
Late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after taking the summer off. He's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say, I see you, who nobody actually sees. Look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping, people in the studio audience were changing the channel.
Megyn Kelly, ever the prosecutorial sniper, didn't just mention Jimmy Kimmel's transformation. She performed a full forensic breakdown. With the precision of a closing argument, she reminded everyone that this is the same guy who once thought it was peak comedy to ask women to bounce on trampolines for the viewing pleasure of frat bros. And now, he's out here trying to cancel people over decade-old tweets. The irony, strong enough to power a small city grid. But Kelly didn't stop. At Hypocrisy, she went straight for the third rail of Kimmel's career, the infamous blackface sketch. You remember it. Everyone does. The internet has a memory like an elephant on Adderall. Kimmel, in full blackface, impersonating NBA legend Karl Malone, broadcast on national television as if it were no big deal. Back then, it aired without a blink. Today, it could trigger a congressional hearing and a 24-hour cable news cycle. Kelly didn't need to rant or rage, she simply held up the mirror and let Jimmy's past do the screaming. He used to be America's drunk uncle, she quipped. Now he wants to be its conscience. It was a line that didn't just land, it eviscerated, delivered in her signature icy calm, like a therapist reading your most embarrassing Google history out loud. And then came the pièce de résistance, the miraculous metamorphosis of Jimmy Kimmel, from fart joke frontman and blackface enthusiast to self-appointed guardian of truth and crusader against misinformation.
Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel, and ABC elevating, the blackface lovin' Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever acknowledging.
The man who once built a career on cheap stereotypes now lectures his audience on ethics, justice, and integrity, as if his past were a cleared browser history, not a digital tattoo burned into the internet forever. Kelly dismantled this sanctimony with surgical focus, mocking Kimmel's attempts to brand himself as late night's truth czar. He wants to fact-check the world, she said, but won't check the mirror. It wasn't just savage, it was systematic. She reduced his moral soapbox to a wobbly IKEA table, all veneer, no support, and one screw short of self-awareness.
Jimmy's career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into his menstrual cycle.
And Kelly? She pointed it out, circled it in red ink, and metaphorically stapled it to the forehead of late-night television. You remember Megyn, blonde, brilliant, and banned from Manhattan brunches for daring to have her own opinions. Her style wasn't loud, but it was lethal. Where Gutfeld laughed at Kimmel's tumble from comedic relevance, Kelly dissected it like a seasoned prosecutor reading off a charge sheet. No yelling, no grandstanding, just a calm, chronological takedown, delivered with the chill precision of a tax audit. She unearthed old sketches Kimmel would rather the world forget, relics of a frat boy era he's now desperately trying to bury beneath a veneer of moral righteousness. Jokes that once made Howard Stern look tame, now whitewashed by the soft glow of a desperate rebrand. Kelly didn't need punchlines, she brought cold, unflinching receipts. And the most brutal part? She was right. There's something almost poetic about watching a man who made his name mocking pop culture now cosplay as its moral compass. According to Kelly, Kimmel didn't evolve, he sold out. He swapped authenticity for applause, trading laughs for lectures and punchlines for policy briefings. While Gutfeld lit comedic fireworks, Kelly dropped legal exhibits. And Jimmy Kimmel, he became Exhibit A in Hollywood's favorite tradition, selective amnesia.
We'll tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, in network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million averaging, also equally horrible. And
Greg Gutfeld, master of uncomfortable truths, sliced through Jimmy Kimmel's sanctimony with the precision of a surgeon. It's not comedy if you have to clap after every joke to prove it's not a tantrum, he quipped. Translation, Kimmel's laugh track has been swapped out for moral applause from an audience so desperate to feel enlightened, they'd probably cheer a weather report if it took a jab at Republicans. Gutfeld didn't just roast Kimmel's jokes, he torched the entire concept. Watching Jimmy now, he said, is like watching your guidance counselor attempt stand-up. Awkward, sweaty, and pleading for you to care about climate change while fumbling a GOP punchline. And let's be real, when Gutfeld sounds like the voice of reason in comedy, you know someone in Hollywood has seriously lost the plot, probably right after signing Kimmel for another season of melodramatic monologues and cufflinks. What made their takedown so glorious was the contrast. Gutfeld's attacks were like a raccoon with a megaphone, wild, loud, and impossible to ignore. Kelly's style was surgical, carving out Kimmel's contradictions with the grace of a ballet dancer wielding a scalpel. Together, they reduced. Kimmel from comedian to a confused spokesperson for causes he barely researched. Meanwhile, Jimmy stayed silent. Maybe he didn't hear them over the roar of his own applause signs, or maybe he thought ignoring the critiques would preserve his fragile high ground, a foundation built on sandcastles of old jokes and moral reinvention. The damage was done. Gutfeld highlighted the absurdity of someone calling out misinformation while spinning his own monologues like a washing machine on high. Kelly exposed the irony of a man decrying cancel culture while quietly scrubbing his past with digital whiteout and Google SEO. The audience didn't need a response. They got something better. The brutal truth that Kimmel's evolution wasn't courageous. It was convenient. A strategic pivot, not a transformation, smelling more like desperation than enlightenment. While Gutfeld joked that Kimmel's makeover was PR-sponsored, Kelly dropped the final bomb. Kimmel wasn't punching up, he was punching sideways, safely aligned with whatever direction his producers nodded toward. Once the guy who mocked Hollywood, now he is Hollywood, with all the smug self-righteousness, curated guilt, and tearful pleas for social justice neatly sandwiched between luxury car ads. That's what made the Gutfeld-Kelly takedown so delicious. They weren't just mocking a man. They roasted a transformation so disingenuous it begged for it. Gutfeld kept sarcasm flowing like boxed wine at a PTA meeting. Kelly kept her tone icy and her facts nuclear. And Jimmy? He kept talking into a mirror reflecting only what he wanted to see. No punchline needed, because when two seasoned media vets torch your entire comedic credibility without you even noticing, the joke isn't just on you, it is you.